Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collective podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy the show while I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
Hi, welcome to TFYLP, episode 342. We are, Sunday, August 18th. And today I've got Paul over here.
Good morning, everyone.
And Anna.
Morning.
And then one of our returning cast members that was here earlier in the week, but is on Ouch My Wallet, but is making her TFYLP re-debut, I guess. It is Amber.
Hi.
So hopefully everything is going okay. Do you guys have? Oh, yep. Hey, Carrie, how's it going? So, all right, looks like we are live and everything. So I was a little worried about that. So yeah. So today on TFYP we have an episode that one of our viewers, Carrie, actually suggested the topic that we're doing. So the topic idea that we're doing is that she had posted is when do you have enough Transformers? When is your collection complete? How many Optimus Primes are you going to get before it's too many, or whatever character it may be? When is it an addiction, obsession type of thing? For example, if you're buying Transformers or not selling your collection when there's other financial goals that you may have or other things that you may need to do, such as bills or doctor bills, whatever, stuff for your kids, all that type of thing. So it's a lot to unpack. So hopefully we can kind of go kind of topic by topic to start off. So I guess to start off, I think what might be a good thing is for us to kind of go through at what phase we are in collecting, just to kind of give everyone an idea about kind of our do we collect a couple Transformers? Is there a lot? Is it whatever kind of thing? So I guess I don't know, Paul, do you want to go ahead and start? Kind of what type of collector are you?
Well, if you want to talk about the ebbs and flows or the timeline, I'm probably, if this exists, at late stage Transformerism, which means I've been doing this for a long time, and my collecting habits have changed quite a bit. And I can almost if I really wrote it out, I could probably make a timeline and put phases in it, where in the beginning it was just get whatever. Then you start to get a lot more stuff than you realize, and then you have to put boundaries in place. But then the boundaries can kind of grow over time too, and it's just good to be aware of these things as you're collecting, just to kind of have at least a mental checklist of where you want to be, where you are, and if you've surpassed any of that, and maybe you make a decision, such as, a lot of people call it purging, where you get rid of a large swath of your collection or specific pieces. And I guess I've gone through, I've done that cycle a few times, and I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I've always kept it very. I've always been very aware of what's going on. I have a ridiculous amount of toys, and they're at multiple locations across the Midwest. Unfortunately, my parents have enabled me by giving me some extra space at their house and that kind of thing. But like I'm very aware of what's there, and if I need to get rid of something, I know where to get it. That kind of thing. And this is also why I think a lot of Transformer collectors end up becoming either like pseudo dealers or full-time dealers or stores, because to manage this large sort of, I don't know, some people might call it like bankers would call this a toxic asset, not a real like quality asset. You just have to be able to like continue to buy stuff. A lot of people, what they will do is they will sell something to buy something, you know what I mean? So they're not like actually adding more of their hard-earned money into their collection. They're just kind of recycling it. And so I'm a little bit of all that. And right now I have a huge, like, I feel like I've reached almost completed one of my goals, which was to have every Starscream ever. That was my main, like, that's when I decided one day to do that. And it's been like probably 10 years since I like created that goal for myself. And so now I'm here. So now what? I don't know.
So
can I ask you a question about your Starscreams?
Yeah.
Just for funsies. So, do you own Power of the Prime Starscream?
Oh yeah. I actually like it. I think it's a.
Do you own? Okay. Do you own any Starscreams you don't like?
I mean, yeah, probably. It's not about. It was more about reaching the goal to me than like.
Yep.
I'd already decided that I liked Starscream. I have plenty of toys that I don't think are great. It's more like I have them for history's sake, which is, obviously in my head. But there's definitely some bad ones. Like the Cyberverse toy is pretty bad.
Wait, which Cyberverse toy are we referring to, Paul?
The Warrior one that came out last.
Oh yeah,
the bad one.
That's bad.
Yeah.
So
I like the RID one a lot. That one's really cool, but there was a downgrade in Cyberverse, I would say.
You should actually do an article of like your top 10 and bottom 10 or something along those lines. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I always have these dreams of making content out of all the stuff I have, but I've been very lazy about it. Got other things that I like to spend my time on, but I would like to do that. I should do that for the show.
There you go. It could be your excuse. So, Anna, where are you at with your collecting?
So I mean, quick timeline, or however Paul put it. I guess like I have changed my collecting habits a lot over the years. Like I started, as someone, as an emerging adult who finally had a job and everything. I went from just buying a few of the figures that I thought were really super cool when I could, to buying everything for a few years, which ended up kind of biting me in the rear, because that was during the period of Beast Wars and from Beast Wars to Beast Machines, which was, pretty good, to and then Armada came not too long after that, and I still bought all of that, right? And that was where I realized that I had to start having rules, because I ended up with all of this Armada. I didn't actually want all of the Armada, so I started that purging process of getting rid of a lot of it. So I ended up selling, 100% of my Armada. I don't have any left, because I just simply do not like it at all, but bought it anyway. So I guess that made me more aware of what I've been buying since then. So once Classics came out, I started this crusade to get like a perfect version of every character that I had any sort of investment in. And notice there's that rule, like had any sort of investment in, because there were obscure characters, like, maybe I owned one of the Target Masters, but I honestly didn't remember any of them in the media. So therefore, why would I collect all of them? So I had that rule, which had morphed over the years. So when a character that I really didn't know much about got a cool toy, I would use that as an excuse. Well, I don't have that character yet. Go ahead and get it. And then I kind of had that rule. And then more recently, I think I've realized I don't actually have a goal right now. And that for me as a person, because I'm I'm very career oriented, I'm very goal oriented. So not having a goal is kind of bugging me right now, because it's like I've gone from wanting one of every character that I like to that's actually a pretty real possibility given the amount of third-party and first-party toys out there that are actually good, to kind of realizing that I get a lot more excitement when I buy something that is, case in point, when I buy something like I recently bought one of the Fans Project Dinobots, which was, some people call it a logical purchase because, they're not considered the world's best, but I think they're some of the coolest toys and really fun to mess with. Instead of a purchase that gave me a character I didn't have, buying these Rainmakers that I recently got, that really didn't get me excited at all. Like, it was like, cool, they're colorful plastic and they're characters I didn't have, but I'm more excited by having another sludge that actually ends up being super fun. So I think like I'm trying to get myself to move from one per character rule or trying to perfect things to just getting things that I honest to goodness think are fun, which is awkward because not only do your rules come from you, but from everyone else as well. And since a lot of the things I think are fun are weird, obscure, not even what we call third party, but like old Chinese bootlegs and whatnot, and I think those things are really fun, it's strange to change your collection in that way because you'll get a lot of third party, but not in the way we usually say it, influence of your friends who, are excited for the fancy stuff. But then here I am getting really excited for that Weijing Computron that's coming out that most people think is bizarre and pointless for their collections, but I think is one of the coolest things I've seen in a while because it's actually an original figure. So yes, that's kind of where I am, where I am starting to try to get myself to focus on the things that I think are fun and innovative instead of having some sort of gotta catch them all goal or a only get fancy stuff goal or I can only get it if it's plated in gold goal or whatever. So yeah, that's where I am.
Well, I mean, I think that it's actually not bad to collect weird stuff because, one thing for me and one thing that allowed me to, mentally get out of Masterpiece is the fact that it's like, what, like everybody else has Masterpiece. Like who cares? Like if I have all the same figures that everybody else has, like, I mean, this is just for, and the other thing too is your collection is just for you. So, I mean, it's not like literally I can tell you that when I have company come over, nobody really cares that, that I have, this stuff. So it's really for you. So it's like, whatever makes you happy with your collection, I feel like, and I'm the same way as you, Anna. Like, I kind of am at the point right now where I honestly, like, I love going to conventions like TFCon or whatever and just picking, or TF Expo and picking up something weird that I'm like, what the heck is this? And then I have to go and, do some research to figure out, like, what it is and where it came from and all that.
I think the best illustration for me is something that like all of our microcasters listeners know about me. And that's that like my favorite part of my collection is my Rock Lords. Like I have a lot of Rock Lords. I am moving towards finishing the Rock Lords. And that is fantastic to me. It gets me some of the most excited out of everything that I own, even though I have all these cool fancy toys that actually move and don't transform into rocks. For some reason, those Rock Lords make me the most excited because they're very much Anna toys. They're goofy, they're pointless, but for some reason they just really evoke that positive feeling.
It's a refined collection.
Refined.
So before we go on, one of the viewers was asking you, Paul, do the Starscream also include statues such as Imaginarium Arts and XM Studios?
Probably not. I mean, before like there was about 3 or 4 different Asian companies making these crazy expensive statues, I might have thought about it, but like those $1,000 Prime Studio, no, I don't. There's a limit right there. I have some busts and some statues, but that was like back from the early 2000s when there wasn't a ton of it. It was like one company. It was like Hard Hero was the only one doing busts. Like if you can probably see in the background, I have a lot of the Hard Hero busts, but like there's a point where that stuff's just expensive and it's so big. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those in person. They take up like a whole table. It's crazy. So no, that's where I kind of draw the line, is some of those crazy statue things.
All right, and then Amber, how about you?
I come from like kind of a unique mindset of, because I had a 5-year break in the middle. If you watched the Ouch My Wallet from last week, I went off on a tangent about this. That a lot of my stuff is in bins, and a lot of it is in storage right now. I just don't have the space to like properly store things. So at the moment, all of the toys that are out are the Prime Decepticon toys, because I introduced my girlfriend to Prime, and she badly wanted to play with Starscream and Starscream and Soundwave. And while we're watching the show, we're looking at prices for toys, and Starscream is currently $70 and Soundwave is currently $80. Like, that's extremely expensive for a toy that cost me like $20 when it was on the shelf. So I'm like, I have those toys. Chillax, I'm gonna go find them. So like right now, that's all my collection is just the Prime toys. But like my collection on the whole started in 2007. I was reintroduced to the Transformers fandom when the movies came out. So I don't actually have any movie toys because I didn't care for their designs. As soon as I found the movies, I went backwards and I went back to G1. So I immediately got introduced to G1 and all those old characters. So I hate to be one of those people that I'm just like, I'm a G1er. Like that's who I am. And that's reflective in my full collection. When I was first a part of the fandom, I was an Autobot. I loved everything about the Autobots. So most of my collection is Autobots. I don't have a lot of like I have 2 really old 1984 Transformer. One is, oh my God. One is Hound and the other one is Inferno. And I managed to get those at a yard sale. My mom found them for me. So I got them super cheap, and like they're incomplete. So, and they're old, so it's not that big a deal. But like the toys from that era, I don't really want to collect because I try not to be a material person, but I'm actually quite a material person, which is annoying for my wallet. But a lot of my stuff is the old, I think they were called Universe or Generation. I think they were Universe. No, Generations, the G1 Generations line that came out before Prime or what, I don't know what it's called.
Classics, I think.
Classics
was the original one, and then I think it went into Universe and then Generations.
There, okay, yeah. So, okay, one of those is correct then at that point. That was what I focused on. A lot of my collection is Autobots from that line. But then again, if you know me for any short amount of time, I scream about Skywarp and I scream about Breakdown. And those are my 2 top right now. So Skywarp is the majority of my collection. Like I have, again, if it's black and purple and silver and flies, it's on my shelf. So I have a lot of older Skywarp toys. I have a few that are MISB because I was just like, I want this packaging and I want it in my face and I need it. So a lot of my collection is Skywarp. A lot of my collection is also custom made stuff, plushies and things like that. Like I like to support artists within the fandom. So a lot of my stuff is that, not quite toy side, but kind of toy side because it's a plushie. For me, I'm a lot like Anna. Like the toy has to be interesting for me. I'm not big into the 2-step transformation toys that just pop up, other than Bot Shots because they were fun. I loved that line. The good thing about collecting Skywarp for me is that it's a Starscream repaint. So if Starscream exists in the line, eventually Skywarp will exist in the line. I may have to pay a little more for it, but he does exist in the line somewhere. Somebody will make one. So like that's a good thing that I get to touch on kind of almost every one of the lines. As long as Starscream is in it, then Skywarp will be in it, and that means I have to have it. I said it in Ouch My Wallet a while ago. If a toy doesn't make me want to throw it at the wall while I'm trying to transform it, I don't care for it. Like if it's frustrating, it's a great toy. I'm so happy with it if it's frustrating. So I am, unfortunately, because it's that adult collector versus these are made for children mindset. So like unfortunately, I just don't get a lot of the ones that are the 2-step or the simple transformations. And if it looks simplistic on my shelf, I really kind of don't want it. So like my collection has dwindled. I wish I had the mindset of I'm going to go sell this, because I can't. Once I have it, it's mine. I don't know how to sell things or get rid of things. So my collection just unfortunately keeps growing, and because of that, a lot of it is in storage. I hope to, once I move into my new place, be able to get some detail shelves so that I can just have everything out, because I really miss seeing all of it. And I don't have anything large. Like the larger toys are super cool, but I have nowhere to put them. Triptychon is super interesting. I wish I had a place for him, but like he's also really cool to go mess around with when other people have him too. I find a lot of the times with the larger figures, especially, like if somebody else has it and I get to touch it and play with it, that's good enough for me. Like I don't need to own my own, which is part of the reason why I'm not getting a Unicron.
Yeah, I think for me, like a lot of times I just like to buy it. Like I don't really care about owning it. So it may be something to where like I just want to check out new stuff. So like that's what I'm just constantly buying and selling myself just to kind of check out new things. So and then sometimes I'm trying to get Anna because Anna and I both live in the same city. And so I try to get her to buy stuff. If there's something that like I want to check out, but I don't really want to buy, then they're like, hey, Anna, why don't you go and buy this so I can check it out?
And I do the same thing with Lucas, right? Like I think that like it's funny because I often bug Lucas about the whole like buying things and then selling them like a few weeks later because sometimes he might do that maybe. And I never really like do that much. So I always kind of like bug him about it, maybe pick on him a little bit about it. But the thing is, like, even though I do pick on him about it, it's pretty much all in jest. Like, I don't actually think that's unhealthy or bad in any way. Because it's like, it's almost like saying that, oh, I want to try out this, $100 product that seems really fun to me, but I don't actually need to own it. So I'm going to rent it by buying it for $100 and selling it for $85, spending $15 for, 5 or 6 hours of fun that between the time you transform it, talk about it, display it, take pictures, whatever you do with it, and then sell it again. And like, honestly, I don't see anything wrong with that because it's not harmful or bad in any way. It's just a different way to collect. And I think that's like kind of the cool thing about this conversation is that all these different ways of us collecting are, they're different, but like they're all good in their own ways. They're making us happy. They're sources of fun and silliness for us. Sharing, like Amber, you talked about sharing your collection with people you care about. And that's like really, that's really fun. Like this is the first time since I moved to Kansas a few years back that I've actually had people, and it's pretty much just Lucas and Sean lived around here and didn't live around here. And I'm honestly not sure if he lives here right now.
He does. Yeah. He
okay, great.
He just moved back.
And there's a couple of other people that I see semi-regularly in our fandom. And that's been so much more fun because I can go and sit down and listen to some of them gush about movie figures for me to reply and playfully tell them that they're trash and that they should collect good toys. And it's just fun to do that kind of stuff. Because in all reality, like if I was being completely honest, I'm excited that they bring their movie figures to a meetup so that I can play with them a couple of times because some of them are pretty impressive and fun to play with. I just don't want to own them at all. So I think that community has A, gotten me more into it, but also B, just made it a lot more fun.
Right. And I have this really weird, like unique look on the fandom as I ignored it for 5 years. So stepping back into it, there's 5 years, this is a 5-year gap that I don't know anything about Transformers. I have no idea what's going on. Like I just recently finished watching the last 2 series that aired. And so there's a bunch of toys in the middle that I didn't get to experience. So going back and trying to find them is kind of fun. Like luckily a lot of them are still relatively cheap. So I've purchased 4 toys since coming back to Transformers, so I'm getting a taste for the lines, and I'm getting a lot of people's reactions on Twitter as I ask about, like, hey, this person, I like this person in this show. Do they have a toy? And a lot of my friends are like, yes, they have a toy. This is the toy. This is what's good about it. And there are people that have had these experiences already, so I get to feed off of their energy and see if I even want the toy, rather than this toy just came out, I'm going to buy it, and then later on I find out it's not all that grand. So, I have that unique look on I don't really know what's out there, so I'm just kind of I dove in head first, which is always fun.
So are you kind of going with your Reemergence? Are you kind of going fiction first, and then like looking for the toys based on the parts of the fiction you like?
Yes. For myself, I tend to collect characters. Nowadays, I tend to collect characters that I like, as opposed to I'm going to pick up one of everything. I don't have the space neither here nor at my old place, nor I'm assuming at my new place will I have the space to. I'm going to buy everything, because I don't have like a collection room. There are some people that have major, huge collection rooms, and you guys have stacks of toys behind you, and I wish I had stacks of toys behind me to show off. And it's like,
I wouldn't call it a show off. It's more of a residual collateral damage in my basement.
Are we having? So we're having a sit down meeting of this is an intervention and we need to stop this.
Oh man, I tell you what, yeah, boy, you always think about that, because I mean, we always kind of talk about this. Like, I know that Anna, Christian, and I do, like, with microcasters and kind of collecting goals and where you're at, and like I am a crazy person. Like, we used to give Sean a hard time because so if you know Sean's history, from the show, is that he's had multiple purges, and so like I think he has like bought and then sold his collection like 3 or 4 times, and so
like
we used to
big purges, like
yeah,
all
like
the
big, like
purges.
multi-thousand-dollar purges. And so we used to give him a hard time about that, right? Because it's like, well, it's silly to do that, because if you're gonna purge and then rebuy it, like, why are you gonna do that, right? But then I find myself, I'm in the same boat myself. So I think, as Paul, as you had talked about your different collecting goals, like I feel like my collecting goals have been kind of all over the place, over the last several years to, in the beginning, I didn't have any collecting goals. Oh, yes.
No, I'm sorry. I'm reading the chat. You're good.
Oh, yeah. We'll post the comments after I'm like done on my little like rant or whatever kind of.
Rant away,
What,
Lucas.
is Sean in the comments?
No, he's not. He actually,
No.
he's actually not. He has other stuff going on today. So hopefully he doesn't mind me talking about him, but he's talked about it on the show before. So, but mainly, for me, that it's like at the beginning, I didn't have collecting goals at all. And then I'm just, like buying all kinds of stuff. And then I was, doing the bin life for a long time. And then a few years ago, after we bought our house, my wife said, hey, you know what, like, why don't you go ahead and take one of the rooms, downstairs for yourself and, buy a couple bookshelves, and then you can display it and all that. So that's what I've done. And so this is what you see behind me. And then, but the, it's actually, I've got bookshelves all the way around the room with different things. And so it's not all Transformers. There's a little bit of like other 80s properties as well. But this is kind of like, this is my collection. I personally have a rule where if I'm going to bin it, I'm going to sell it. So it's only, what you see here. And so, or, well, again, stuff on the other side. But yeah, so that's what for me is that I'm constantly, kind of at capacity, because I have a certain amount of space. Like if I get more Transformers than that amount of space allows, I get into a new line, like, Siege has really been killing me because there's been just so much stuff coming out that it's like, like what am I going to do to, in order to make space for this? So, Yeah, so I've went through the Masterpiece, I've went through third party, I've went through the Legends, I've went through G1, I've went through G2, collecting other lines. I'd say for me right now, I mainly like Chug is my main collection, which is the classics like you were talking about, Amber and Generations. Collecting all that stuff with Siege. And then I also have I have a collecting goal where I'm trying to collect everything G2. It's not something to where I am like crazy about it. Like I'm not going and buying Motormaster. I may one day.
Someday.
One day when I get to the end game, like you had talked about, Paul. I'll be. But I'm actually already finding myself there because I actually G2. I'm also including anything from Europe. So I have, with that, I've gotten a ton of that stuff. And then, recently, like when I went to TFCon last year, I was able to pick up the Orange Devastator. And then also Bryce is getting out of, he's actually moving. And so he's actually liquidating his entire collection. And so he's one of those guys where I think he was in the end game, or he's now in the end game. He's past the end game. He's selling it. And so, I'm picking up like the motivators from, the G2 where, this is the kind of thing where it's like, I originally picked up G2 because I was like, oh, this stuff is cheap. Like I could buy this stuff for like $10 a pop, like for the loose stuff. And now, it's not crazy expensive, but yeah, like there's definitely some expensive pieces with G2. So,
well, that's why I like to talk about goals, because there's so many different levels of what you can do. Like saying you're going to get all of G2 sounds pretty simple, but instantly there's like the most expensive pieces of all time in Transformers are part of G2. But they're unreleased, so you could you could cap it at nothing that's unreleased. That's your prerogative. Anyone can do that. I'm like Amber. I'm clearly a character collector, and I like that. That to me, that really was appealing as like a trajectory. And you can.
It saves your wallet some heartache.
Well, it can, yeah, but then there's some. If it depends how far you want to go, like. Almost every character line has like one or two really, really rare pieces that are hard to find, which I think that's fun. If there's like one or two really tough things, you can like almost complete your collection of like, say, Ratchet. Like Ratchet's a pretty good one, but there are a few BotCon toys that are very expensive if you really want to complete your Ratchet. I think there's the custom class figure from the last year, which was ridiculous because that you could make 4 different toys out of it.
And each one, like that Ratchet by itself, like if you get it unused with the sticker sheet, is how much is that going for? Like a couple hundred or something like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. And the original like 2005 or 2006 Ratchet, that's also a pretty. At least at one point, it was super expensive. So. I think it's interesting when people try to like decide what their goal is going to be. If they want to find something that they avoid, like this big rare piece that they don't think they'll ever find, that's fine. Not everyone needs to spend $300 on a piece of plastic just to like check a box. I do, but not everyone does.
But see, for me, I think that's actually fun. Like, I think it's cool to like, all right, I got almost everything, right, of like whatever line, and then I have my holy grail that I'm never gonna find or whatever, kind of thing, and it might take you years to track down whatever this piece is, because the thing that's cool is like that way you're never done collecting. So like, yeah, you might have most of it or whatever. And so that kind of almost like keeps you in the fandom. Like, cause that's the thing is like, I feel like now that with eBay and the groups and all that kind of stuff, it's so easy just to click a button what's the fun in just clicking a button or whatever, the night of the 1,000 pre-orders or whatever for Siege, where all this stuff is going up. It's like, okay, well, you get it all, or you click all the buttons and then you're like, oh, well, I'm done. I guess I've just spent my budget for like the next year, like in one shot. So I think it's a lot of fun of having that. And so like that's what for like the G2 stuff, like almost nobody has that kind of stuff. Like if you go to conventions like TFCon and all that, like they usually don't I mean, I think some of the old bot cons did, but like so that's the thing for me is I went to all these TFCons, I could never find it. And then this last TFCon that one of the guys was liquidating part of his collection, and he had a bunch of G2 European stuff, and I was like, but then of course that got me in trouble because I'm like, well, here's my whole budget. But
well, that opens you up to the social aspects of the fandom. You're not going to find that stuff unless you interact with others, and that's a big part of the fandom. And it takes a few years for newcomers to really open up to that. Like it took me years to really I went to a few BotCons before I really went to BotCon and started meeting people, and now I have friends that I never would have had otherwise, and it's great. It's healthy.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting, just hearing these collection goals and thinking about the different ways you can do them. Because, for instance, Lucas, I'm sorry because you haven't talked about this, but it's not like it's a big secret or anything, that you recently decided that you liked Iron Factory best of the Legends toys, and decided to just go back and get the ones that you didn't have before, which some of them went up in price a little bit, but it wasn't that hard for you to do that because of the internet. And because of access, it's something that you can do, is go back and complete an entire set, which sometimes I'll do things like that too. I'll decide I really want something, go back and get it. Like right now, I think I am coming to terms with the fact that I want most of what Fans Project put out before they kind of stopped making toys, because I really like their figures, and that I'm probably going to be able to obtain most of that for decent prices in a relatively fast clip. But at the same time, I've been collecting Rock Lords since I was a kid, and pretty much getting everything I found that I liked. Back in the day, it was like you find one at a flea market or a yard sale or a antique mall, and you just buy it because there's no other way to find it. Now, if I really wanted to, I could sit down after this podcast, get on eBay, get on the other sites, find all the Jewel Lords, find freaking Fossil Lord, and spend my entire paycheck for the entire summer and complete my Rock Lord collection, right? I have enough savings that I could go out and just get all the rest of the Rock Lords. But I don't want to. I want to be collecting Rock Lords for the next 10 years. I want to be getting a piece here and there of this, toy line, so that I'm in no rush to complete it. And I don't have to be, because I know that the internet and the access is going to be there. And maybe, I've missed the best time to buy Jewel Lords or whatever, but it doesn't matter to me because I can finish it eventually, and that's a more fun way to do it for me, is to do it over time.
Well, here's a question, Anna. How much does condition of the figure play into if you want to buy it or not, and how much you're willing to pay? Because some of those chrome guys, I think the Silk Nugget or whatever, those are typically rubbed away. It's hard to find a good one, right?
I have to say that I am extremely inconsistent with that, because there are some figures for which I will, if I see it, and for instance at Expo this year, I picked up a Gnarly from someone, which is a weird Rock Lord little monster thing with hair on it.
Fraggle.
Yeah,
Fraggle
they're
Rock
kind of
Lord.
like that, and if you roll them on the ground, they gyrate and kind of, I don't know, their flesh moves around. It looks kind of gross and fantastic. But I only have a couple of those, and the first one I bought was in really good condition. It's really fuzzy and nice looking, and it rolls really easy. The one I bought this year is in kind of crappy condition, right? It's one of the more valuable ones, but its hair isn't very fluffy. It doesn't gyrate very well anymore. And that's kind of a bummer to me that I even got it, because it just it isn't as exciting. I wanted to get it because I wanted to get a Rock Lord at the event, but at the same time it's eh. So it's I do have a Nugget, and my Nugget is in super good condition. Now, that is because for some reason, I have no idea how, because most of my G1 Transformers are utterly destroyed, but for some reason, I kept really good care of my Rock Lords, so my original Nugget is in really good shape. Like, he doesn't really have any chrome rare or anything, which is bizarre, again, because I was a child. I don't know how I took care of it. So that one's important to me, and, like, my Slime Stone, like, bothers me because I mean, like, he has the type of damage that I really hate in that he can barely stand at this point. Like, his chrome looks nice, but he can't really stand. So if I found a better Slime Stone somewhere, I'd probably get it to improve it. I think that's an interesting part of the collection, right? Because that's something I hadn't even really thought about, in that I would like to improve some of these old figures that I have to make them better. But anyway.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, too, is like, for example, like, if you want to go and get a loose G1 collection that's like just the US, like not Japan or Europe or whatever, it's not really that hard to do. Like, there's a few pieces, again, like, you know, Paul alluded to, that would be tough to track down, but it's not too bad. The tough part is when you start going into, I want a perfect condition one with the box and the instructions and the unapplied sticker sheet and whatever. And then if you get into that and you get into all the variants, it's like, well, you're going to be going forever. Like, you're never going to find some of that stuff.
Yeah, like Amber mentioned, having some G1 figures that are incomplete and having, you know, like damage and whatever. And I do too. Like, a lot of I only have a little bit of G1 because I just don't think they have the best shelf presence these days compared to other things I could own. And I have the same Lucas rule that if it has to go in a bin, it goes on the sell, because I don't want to keep things in boxes. And yeah, anyway, so I definitely have G1 stuff, like my Soundwave. I really like having a G1 Soundwave. I see no reason to get the new commemorative one, but my Soundwave, definitely, his head is in no way connected to his body, and it just kind of sits there. And it sits on the shelf just fine. Like, he looks fine. You would think I had a good condition Soundwave, then you pick him up and his head just leaves. His tape deck works, but his head likes to go on little trips, and that doesn't bother me. But then at the same time, the fact that Slimestone can't stand up really does bother me. So it's the weird, like, sometimes, I don't know, like, there's some things, like having a bunch of G1 figures. You know, a bunch of the G1 figures had removable fists and no longer have those fists. That drives me crazy. Like, I've owned a G2, an Inferno for years and years, and he hasn't had his fists. And every time I look at him, I'm like, ooh, that's such a good toy. I love Inferno. Where are your hands? It's so sad.
See, that's why you have to go with us to TFCon, Anna, and you can go to some of the parts parties, and we can have you talk to Megamus or whoever, and pick up some of those parts you're missing for your G1 toys.
That's the thing, though. Like, obviously, I'm not motivated to actually do it, right? Because, like, I live close enough and know Aaron well enough that I'm sure he could have gotten me hands for my Inferno 6,000 times in the past 3 years, but I haven't actually done it. So obviously it's not actually a motivator for me, because instead I've gone out and bought all this weird stuff. But at the same time, like, someday I'll probably buy hands.
But it's also fun to, like, be able to go to conventions like that and, like, complete your collection there. Or, like, I mean, yeah, sure, the advent of eBay or Etsy or wherever you want to buy your toys from, like, obviously that exists, and for people that are looking to sell their toys out, that's great. But it's like, it's so much more fun to go on that hunt and to have that, I found this out in the wild. Like, I went to a convention and I found this, and sure, it was like $120, whereas I know on the shelf it was $20 like 5 years ago, and I probably could have gotten a cheaper price online. But at the same point, there's definitely that thrill of, I just bought this here, like, right now, and now it's in my hands, and now I'm walking away with it, and this is amazing. You know, and that's always fun. I need to hit up some parts parties or TFCon DC to see if I can maybe complete Hound and Inferno. Hound's missing his wheels because they were made of rubber back then, so, like, I know that he's missing his wheels and he's missing a few other pieces, and then Inferno's poor, his ladder is just shattered because it's like super thin white plastic, so it's super yellowed. But I mean, I didn't personally pay anything for them. I think my mother maybe paid $10 for the two of them, you know. But it's really cool to have like older toys in my collection. Will I get more? Highly unlikely, though I'm still on the hunt for a non-orange tipped complete Megatron. There's one in my local toy store that I was extremely tempted to buy at $100. It was $150, but he was incomplete. So I'm like, if I'm gonna spend that much, I want him complete. And I got him out of the shelf, and I looked at him, and I held him in my hands, and I'm like, this is amazing. And then put him back because I wasn't totally sure about it, and then looked online and realized that he was missing one piece. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm really glad I didn't destroy my wallet for something that's incomplete. So that was really good.
Oh, I was going to say, Carrie in the chat was asking just about some of the G1 reissues as well, and like whether or not have those devalued the original G1s?
No.
Like, would you say? I would say no. Like, there's enough differences between the new ones and the original ones, and there's like the people that care about that, like really care about it. I think that it's possible some of the stuff, like maybe like the Dino cassettes, or you know, a good example like the G1 Fort Max, when Takara reissued that, I think that it may have devalued it like a little bit to where, you know, instead of it going for crazy money, it went for less crazy money, but it's still, you know, goes for a lot. But I know, like, I have a story where when I first got into it, someone was asking like, oh, are the reissues just as good as the originals? And like I piped in, I was like, yeah, you know, like they're great, you know, blah 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 blah. And then I had you know, someone who is a more high-end collector, and they said, no, well, actually it's not, because, you know, the quality of the plastic they used was, you know, better. And then, you know, this had like, you know, here's the 5 different things that, you know, made the original toy, you know, different from the original one, and this is why it was better, and blah 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 blah. So I think that, you know, with a lot of these reissues, like, you know, I personally am getting the G1 reissues because I think it's cool to have one that's in a box that displays well. But I've heard that the plastic isn't quite as good as some of the originals. I don't know, Paul, if you found that like on those, or
I don't know about plastic quality per se, but like I love reissues just because there's always tells on them that tell you which version it is. That's why I have like the chronology of G1 Starscream molds on my shelf behind me. It looks like I have 10 of the same toy, but every single one of them is from a different year, has a major difference that makes it unique. So I mean, maybe initially, sometimes those reissues will devalue the originals, but the people that were willing to spend $500 on X and X original G1 toy are still going to spend that much on it, because it's not like there's more of that particular toy now. It's the people that just want to, like, just kind of want, say, a G1 Grimlock or something, even though that hasn't been reissued. You know, they just don't have one. They'll just get the reissue, and they don't care about paying the expensive price. But like someone that really cares about the original stuff will still pay the money. And with Fort Max, it turns out that the new Fort Max has had a lot of problems. I have one, but I didn't open it. I've heard that there's a lot of mistake, like parts missing. You know, it doesn't have the big styrofoam tray that it came in originally. So like that kind of those differences are nuanced, but they matter. It's those details that make something worth a ton of money and not a ton of money. Like even a G1, two sealed G1 toys, if one of them has a flap crease, that devalues it by like a few $100s versus one that is pristine. You know, that's that condition thing I was bringing up, Anna. You know, that's when it comes to like paying big money for this stuff. Like those are the things that people care about. They want the gnarly that has no gunk in the hair and still snarfles as it goes across the ground. What?
I said, I do too.
Yeah.
I have to admit it to myself after getting it. I really do want that.
that takes a lot of time though to care about that kind of stuff, because I
does.
definitely didn't in the beginning, but then I started following Maz, like Maz Sensei. You know, he's right now like kind of recollecting old G1 toys, and he talks about how hard it is to find like a Bumblebee that doesn't have a sticker that's crooked or something like that. Like that is really nuanced, and not everyone cares, but he does, because he knows like essentially everything about Transformers, and to him that matters. And so it doesn't matter to everybody, but it matters to some of us crazy people.
Well, and
I think it's
sorry.
I think an interesting thing about the current reissues, I was going to say, is that like Soundwave is $50 in the store, and to be completely honest, if you shop around, it doesn't take that much more than $50 to get a decent condition G1 Soundwave, you know, one that actually has his head attached and actually comes with his tape and everything in decent condition. So it's interesting that like you can make that choice right now. Like you can spend your $50, get the easy way out, get one that is complete all together, has the stickers and everything, that is newly produced and might have a little bit, you know, of mold degradation or whatever else. Or you can spend just a little bit more and do the like easy hunt of eBay and find a decent condition actual G1 Soundwave. So you have that option in how you can do it, how you can complete that one goal of I want a Soundwave.
There is a little bit of risk, I would say, though, because you know exactly what you're getting with that new reissue, unless you have like QA issues, but then you can return it to the store if you want. You know, like the one, it's really hard to tell from eBay sometimes, like the condition of the stickers, or like, you know, is it loose? You know, people take the toys and dangle them now. It's like, those are the risks you take with, you know, going for the vintage toy. You don't really know what you're getting until you get it. And I think it's hard to return an item on eBay. I think it's kind of like, it's like you can't be too picky. Like when you're buying from an individual seller.
I mean, I think it depends on, you know, how the seller described it. Like, so if the seller put in there, you know, the figure has tight joints, perfect stickers or whatever, and you get it and the stickers are trash and, you know, it's wobbling all around, then yeah, like that's the difference. And I think that's the other thing that you have to like make sure and ask, like when you're buying things on eBay, like, you know, what is there anything, you know, can you give me more pictures? Can you take pictures of the backside of the figure? Because like stuff could be broken that they're not showing off, you know, in the pictures that they may not be disclosing. So like, I know you know, usually I'm asking them like, hey, like, are there any, you know, how are the joints? Is it, you know, is there anything like I can't see on the other side that's, you know, messed up or whatever? What's the condition of, you know, whatever? The one thing I will say too about some of these reissues that I think it's kind of interesting is that, and just in general, that, you know, this stuff like dries up pretty quick. And so depending on what it is, like we go through this whole ebb and flow to where that, you know, like I know that Starscream and the Devastator both were really hard to find. The reissues, like the Rodimus was on clearance. You could get those things for, you know, $10 a pop or whatever at the end of the day, or I can't remember what the final clearance price was, and $5. Yeah, I think Optimus Prime is just now going through that, where you know, I think people are reporting it as low as like $12.50 and stuff like that when it was originally a $50 toy. But I think that even with that, like, you know, there was stuff like Combiner Wars where that stuff was getting blown out, clearanced out. There's a lot of stuff that was on Ollie's, you know, that where it was, you know, at the time was really cheap, and now it's actually, you know, expensive, or it might be an exclusive or something like that even that got clearanced out at Target. And then now you know, you can't find it. You might be paying, you know, twice as much as the original retail.
And it's just, that also goes with the supply and demand kind of nonsense. And the further we get out of a certain toy line, and I'm going to use Prime as a great example. We are 5 years out, 6 years out from when Prime started, and the toys hit the shelves and they were everywhere, and, you know, $15, $20, not a big deal. Now that they're no longer on the shelves, there are other people getting into the fandom. So prices just go up and up and up. And from my experience with Prime, almost every single one of those toys was extremely solid. So it's definitely a great line to like look at and to see. I don't like that I currently can't find a Soundwave for any cheaper than $80. But at the same point, I understand the price point because it is a solid toy. It was the last time Hasbro did this particular price point with this particular level of detail and articulation and whatnot. So you definitely get a lot of bang for your buck within the Prime toys, and adding them to your collection now is extremely expensive, you know, going backwards even to the vintage G1 toys. It depends on if you want them like loose or MISB, like if that stuff matters to you, and everybody's collection is different. I buy toys to play with. So if I buy them, they're coming out of the package. I have 2 Skywarps that are currently in their package. I did not buy them. I'm MISB, but they do they live in their packaging. I don't take them out because I'm terrified. I would rather not. And most people, obviously, you buy a collection to show it off. You buy a toy to show it off, to bring it. For me, I bring a lot of toys to conventions just to have with me to play. Like I didn't buy this here, but I brought it from home and you know. And playing with them and posing them and doing all these interesting, neat things with them. And it's just like, for me personally, like the box doesn't matter. Especially if I'm going to go back and try to find vintage toys, a lot of the times the box itself for my personal taste doesn't matter, because I will keep it. I have quite a lot of old vintage boxes, but the toys don't stay in their boxes. They get brought out. So like for me, keeping a toy sealed is a moot point because I buy them to play with them, even if they're super expensive.
So you're saying I should sell my MISB Prime toys because I got a bin in my garage right now that I've been meaning to get rid of, and I didn't know they were valuable. Oh,
they are. If I remember correctly, we looked on eBay's sellers list. My girlfriend and I looked on eBay sellers lists, and the completed listings. Starscream was like $70. Soundwave was like $80. I think Breakdown's currently going for about $300 right now. So wow. Considering that, I believe I bought him for like $85, $90, something like when he first came out. So the markup on Prime toys is kind of asinine right now.
Yeah, I mean,
sounds like my kind of thing.
Yeah, you and your, hey, look at this purple cone Skywarp you need to buy from this. I'm still thinking about that one.
Well, the guy asked for offers, and I'll connect you if you want. I have no skin in the game.
I think that there's too is it's always finding the right buyer, and I mean that's why eBay's so great. But like, you know, because there might be stuff that, you know, for example, Fans Project, it's just going for, you know, for nothing, for pennies on the dollar of what it originally was. But I think that there are certain people that you're like, oh, I really want to collect all Fans Project, or I want to collect all the alternators, or all the, you know, whatever random, you know, random toy line. So kind of moving on, like, when do you see, and I know, Paul, you kind of alluded to this, like when do you see yourself being done collecting? So like, you know, I'll start just real quick, and I'll just say I don't ever see an end to my collecting. Like, I think that I don't think I'm going to be, you know, I won't be collecting at the pace that I currently am I think in a few years or whatever, but like I've always been a collector. Like I was a collector when I was a kid. You know, I used to collect baseball cards and things like that, comic books. You know, I've always, you know, kind of collected toys. So I think that even, you know, 10 years from now, it might be something to where, yeah, like I'm not collecting a bunch of Transformers, but I might collect just something that, you know, I see that's neat on the store shelf, and I'll, you know, kind of add that to my collection. And I also try to go at a pace that I can personally sustain to where I don't get super burnt out. And if I do feel like I'm getting burnt out, then that's where I'm selling and whatever. So I guess I don't know who wants to go next.
I'll go next.
Okay.
I'm excited too, because I'm really excited to have someone else on the show who admits to actually playing with and posing their figures, because I feel like I hang out on the show with a bunch of like fancy statue collectors where I am really excited as soon as the show ends to go and figure out a cool pose to put this guy in and probably play with them for like 15, 20 minutes beforehand, because that is, how I enjoy my collection. And, I authentically do enjoy actually like playing with the toys for what they are, for toys, which is funny because that has pushed me away from the frustrating transformations and into the more like intuitive, comfortable transformations, which is funny that, that same desire to have a cool thing to play with has pushed us in opposite directions. But I want to say that I honestly just hope I don't ever hit an end goal. I hope I don't stop, because I do actually enjoy messing with these figures. I hope that, in 30 years, when I'll be 65 in 30 years, I hope that I'm still hunting down some sort of Transformers. I hope that I'm still hunting them down and messing with them and, being judged by my like-aged friends for still playing with toys and whatever. Because at that point, I'll be 65, I'll do whatever I want. But I think it is, something I don't want to stop. At the same time, I find it necessary to constantly have rules and goals so that I don't, just buy everything. Because last night, I stopped by Target because I was out of town for a minute, and, they had a much better stock than I'm used to. And technically, between Cyberverse and Studio Series, they had probably like 15 figures I don't have. I could have dropped like $300 right there, got a whole bunch of toys. But I have to have those rules, those like laws, like I want to get all the Rock Lords, but I don't need all the Chug, but I don't need all the MP. I have to have those rules to keep myself sane, but I never want to actually make a rule that makes it end, right? Like I want to have my rules open to where it's like, sure, I only want one of each character, but if something really cool that I want to play with comes up, I do buy it. And, having like little excuses, like I have Ultra Magnus as an excuse that I can buy as many Ultra Magnuses as I want because I want to own them all. And that way I will always have an excuse to get more toys. I like having those little loopholes, but also having that like structure and rules. I like rules. I like personal rules and ways of like controlling my excitement and habits. Because you can tell I get like super excited when I talk about certain things, like Rock Lords. So therefore those rules are, so yeah, I have goals and rules to keep myself from buying too much, but I don't have an end goal and I don't want an end goal. So that is my thoughts on it.
Good thoughts for sure. Like for me, again, coming out of this 5-year hiatus of I haven't touched toys, these Transformers toys in a while, my collection going forward from here, when I first got into Transformers, it was I'm going to buy everything that looks like a G1 toy, period. So that is like, that was my goal first getting into it because all of the characters interested me. And then once I started narrowing it down, okay, Skywarp is my main boy, Prime Breakdown is my main boy, and Animated Lockdown is my main boy. So the three of them I kind of collect almost exclusively nowadays. Going forward from here, going back to my point previous, if it's not really difficult to transform or at least kind of challenging, I don't care for it. So like the toys that are on the shelf from Cyberverse don't super interest me. I'm not interested in the little bots either. Like they look interesting, but I hate blind bags. So probably not going to pick those up unless they're loose and I can see what I'm getting. And then the Siege line is currently right up my alley. I have 2 of the Siege lines currently, and that may be all I'm getting, but that depends on who they come out with next. For my end goal, just like you, I don't think I have one, Anna. I don't have one. Just like you, just like Lucas. Like having an end goal kind of terrifies me. I mean, if I drop out of the love of Transformers again, they're probably all going to go into bins and they're probably all going to go into storage until I decide I wanted to pick up Transformers again. Because again, the thought of like selling my toys kind of freaks me out a little bit. So, there are a lot of toys and a lot of lines that I'd still like to get my hands on. Skywarp specific, there are I want to say 8. I think there's only 8 Skywarp toys I need, and most of them are going to run me a very hefty penny at this point. So they are my current focus, my holy grail there. I basically want to continue collecting all of my favorite characters. So like Skywarp is the one that I will go for most. I have almost all of the animated Lockdown variants that he came out with. I think I'm only missing like 2 of those ones. And then Prime Breakdown is 1 toy. So he's easy and he's done. Unless I decide to get, well, technically he's 2 toys, I guess. This is the regular one and the Stylus Breakdown. And I have both of them. So he's done. So like my main focus.
There's little ones too.
Little ones?
Yeah. Cyberverse scale or whatever.
Yeah, okay. No, I have that one. That one I do have, the little one. I have that one too. But that's basically me. So like my collection is going forward will be very picky and particular for the time being until I have space. And then once I have space, it may be free game. I may want to dive into it a little better or dive into more lines and more toys. But, for right now, it's definitely going forward. I'm being super particular about if it's Skywarp, it's mine. If it's Lockdown, it's mine. Anything else is kind of like, okay, this looks cool. I've heard a lot about it. I'm going to pick this 1 toy up. So, and I hope to never stop collecting myself personally.
Yeah. It's not fun to stop.
No.
Right, exactly.
Can I just chime in real fast? I think we have one more person to answer that question, but I do want to bring up one more topic as soon as we're done with that, just because I feel like I want to be true to the original topic, which I'll get to in a second.
Sure.
Well, one thing, and I guess, Paul, let's go and do it, because I actually have kind of, something I know that Carrie brought up in the comments as well that I kind of want to address. But, Paul, you go and go on your spiel first. Like, do you see yourself being done collecting?
No. I mean, there's the Starscream thing. I have other paths as well. But the thing I like about character collecting is it cuts off a lot of fat. Like, I'm not going to go, like Anna's saying, I don't go to Target and be like, oh, I need to get every toy because I only need to get Starscream if there is one that I don't have, or Soundwave, all the big characters that there's always toys of. But it makes it so there's every time, as long as Transformers continues as a brand doing what it's doing by reinventing itself slightly every few years, there's always going to be a small handful of toys that I have to get my hands on, and they're not going to be super hard to get, which is great. It's just kind of, a few toys here and there. And I expect that to probably continue until I'm 60 as well. Although that's a very scary thought to think about what Transformers is going to be like 30 years in the future, Anna. You kind of blew my mind. We should probably do a whole predictive podcast on that and reconvene many years.
Terrifying concept.
Time capsule podcast.
Awesome concept.
I like it.
So one thing I want to touch on, because I know that Carrie had talked about as far as like at this point in her life that she doesn't necessarily have the funds to go on buy a bunch of stuff and whatever. And I think that a lot of us have kind of went through this. I've seen a lot of collectors to where they're like, what, I have new life goals. Like there's a lot of other people that are just starting different points in their life. They might be having kids, they might be getting a new buying a new house, they might want to just do something else, like whatever. And so I think the thing that's nice about Transformers again is that the community is always going to be there. And I know, Amber, you kind of are evident of that you took a 5-year break and now you're back. So it's like it doesn't necessarily have to do it. And I think the other thing this neat is that buying stuff is not the only avenue that you have in order to like kind of be involved in the fandom. So I think that there's a lot of other avenues to where if you want to be into the fiction and fan fiction or the comics or cosplay or the different things like that, or like watching the the various media and whatnot that's released as well. And I think even if you are into the toys, there's so much of a community where people are talking about, like, I know, for example, again, I touched on, again, I sold all my Masterpiece, but at the same time, I can still, get on Facebook and on, TFW and on YouTube, and I can still be involved with the fandom and see, like, oh, they're talking about, there's a cool new Fans Toys figure, that just came out, and I can sit there and I can watch the review of, whoever, like, transforming the thing. I can participate of the different pictures and all that type of thing. I think that a lot of times, unfortunately, that kind of leads to an urge to want to kind of keep up with everybody else, that you're like, oh, so-and-so got this new Skywarp or whatever, so I need to go out and buy the new Skywarp too. But, like, most of this stuff is always going to be there. Like there is very few items to where that if you, like, take a pause and don't actually, like, whatever, get it now and you have to get it 2 years from now, that, it'll be there. So I think that that's one thing that's nice about the fandom. But, again, like, I would sit there and, do, whatever budget that you may have, and I've went through that before. I mean, that's part of the thing that I've had, with selling is that I'm like, oh, well, I may have some big bill that comes up, and I'm like, well, like, I would like to have more savings, so I'm going to go ahead and sell some more stuff. But I think it can still be the same even if you don't sell your stuff. I think you just want to be more selective with, if you don't sell things, be more selective with what you're buying.
Right.
I think that's a good point. We focus, I'd say, we brand this as a collector podcast, but it's really a Transformers fandom podcast. And it's a franchise based around toys from the beginning. So the collecting part is kind of the main, I'd say, the biggest piece of the pie of the fandom that people are involved in, but it's definitely not the only one. And, buying the toys, like we're talking about, it's a luxury thing. Like, you don't have to do this. You aren't any less of a fan because you didn't buy any toys, even X or X toy. It's not exclusive. It's supposed to be more inclusive.
Right. And it's fun to be able to see the different walks of the fandom and to see who supports the fandom in what way. There are people who, like, I'm a big toy collector, I'm going to get everything, or I'm a big proponent of the comics, so I'm going to get the single issue of the current ongoing IDW comic the day it comes out, and I'm going to read it. Or in my case, it's costumes and it's giant rigs. And a lot of the times I share my love for the fandom by drawing and by creating giant robot costumes. So it's fun to see, like, I may not be spending money on the latest toys that are coming out, but that means that I'm throwing $500 at a robot costume instead that is going to make a bunch of people smile and be happy as I bring him to cons or whatever, and getting to share the different walks of life, I guess, that people come from, and like what they can do. Like there are some people that it's like I want to buy toys but I can't because I don't have the money, or I want to buy toys but I can't because I don't have the space, or I would love to costume but I can't because I don't know how, or I would love to draw, or I would love to write. And it's like the different ways that you share the love with the fandom. It could be physical, it could be digital, it could be just you're here and enjoying things, and that's all that matters. As long as you're showing some sort of love for the fandom in some way. And as a collector, as a collector, like, just as on the whole, like, this is the life that we live and this is the life that we lead, and it's different than other people, So that's
Agreed.
Anna, did you have? I don't know if
yeah. So I wanted to throw in
mine or what.
My question, because when Carrie proposed this topic, part of what she was asking about was kind of like somewhat self-destructive habits of toy buying. And full disclosure, before the podcast, I like actually ask everyone to kind of stray away from the word addiction and from exploring that, because, you know, we may not like really be qualified to talk about mental health on here. But I do want to talk about like that kind of negative aspect with like a simple question. And that is asking, do you have any Transformers, I want to say purchase, but decision, that you have made that you have strong regret for? That you look back at and you think, oh goodness, why did I do that? Why did I make that decision? Why did I buy that thing? And, you know, I will share my own. And mine is these machines.
Anna, you're roboting.
Oh shoot, when did I robot? When was the last thing I said in human language?
Just now.
Okay, great. All right, so I was talking about some sort of purchase decision that we have regret for. And I'm going to say that mine is the entirety of these machines. Because I was a teenager, I had like my first or second job. I had, you know, I paid rent to my mom, but I otherwise had all the money that I needed. So I was able to go out there and get every Beast Machines figure that came out. Now, even at the time, I would get some of them home and think, why is this awful? Why is this toy so super bad? Why don't I like it? And I just kept doing it, right? Like, even knowing after like wave 2, when I wasn't happy with any of the figures, it's not like I didn't buy wave 3. It's not like I didn't track down all the exclusives and repaints and all that stuff. No, I got all of it. And guess what? Years later, when I finally started selling my figures, Beast Machines isn't worth anything. Beast Machines is like, when you were talking about Prime going up, I was like, just like Beast Machines. You can buy all of that for like a third of its original retail price. And,
oh no.
You know, here I am knowing that, like, as a kid, when I actually didn't have that much money, and I could have been, you know, like, doing things like, I didn't buy a car until I was in my 20s, because instead I was buying robots. I bought cars, toy cars, that turned into robots. So, like, I can look back on that decision and say, like, yeah, I was a dumb, impulsive teenager, and I really should not have bought a whole bunch of Beast Machines just because they were Transformers, knowing that I did not like them and they were not exciting to me. I went ahead and bought them. So I do have that regret. I don't do that kind of stuff nearly as much anymore. You know, like, it's like I own 2 Cyberverse figures that I bought for funsies, fully knowing that I wasn't going to like them as much as my other figures, but fully knowing that I wanted to explore the toy line because I like to play with them. And also fully knowing that I'm probably going to give them to someone's child at one point, because, you know, they're not for me, but they're fun to kind of mess with and see what they are. So yeah, that would be my kind of share there. So now that I've stalled for you all to think about your own stories, if you have any, feel free to go ahead.
Well, I think there's definitely some catharsis in buying some of these toys. You know, like I'm projecting here, but maybe part of why you just bought the Beast Machines toys is because you just wanted to buy some Transformer. You know, it wasn't like, I have memories of getting Transformers when I was younger, and they were awesome. The G1 toys were awesome. I've definitely bought stuff back in the early 2000s when I got back into this. You know, just like I bought Kicker from Energon and kept it mint and sealed box. Like, I thought that was cool. I don't know what I was thinking. You know, like, some of this, I was just kind of buying stuff to buy stuff back then and be part of I started becoming a collector, but I was very unfocused and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just like, this is out. I'm going to buy this Skyblast Energon toy. It looks like Skyfire. So at least I kind of had a reason there. But I don't know. I'll just admit that, like, there's times when you buy Transformers because it feels good. There might be some buyer's regret there sometimes. And, you know, if you can identify it, you know, privately, then maybe you won't do that again. But maybe you will too, as long as you're not buying like $200 worth of toys at a time. It's probably good.
I think for me, I mean, the biggest one is like with the movie figures. Like, I've gone through this multiple times where, you know, they're out, and so then I buy them, or I hold off, and then they go on sale, and I'm like, oh, like, and so then like I did this with a couple of the last movie lines, like the Last Night, and what was the one before that?
Marky Mark and the Funky
whatever,
Formers.
the Marky Mark one. Anyway, so like I went and bought I bought the whole movie lines, and I was like, God, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Like, this is ridiculous. Because then like a lot of those you just can't sell. The new Studio series is kind of different because people they've actually been good toys, and you know, figures that have kind of retained their value a little bit, but and I've actually been happy, like with the ones. So going into Studio series, I'm like, I'm just gonna buy a couple of the ones that I really like and whatever. So I think that's my biggest regret, Transformers wise. I think for me, my biggest regret collecting wise, again, is I'm just going through this now with Marvel Legends. Because like I am mainly a Transformers collector. I started buying Marvel Legends because, you know, Transformers would get slow and all that. And then it's like or Star Wars, I think, is another one. Like a couple of those, like anything non-Transformers that I've gotten, and then I've gotten too much, and it's really hard to unload that stuff. Some of them are easy to unload, but then a lot of it's not. And so like I've really regretted that. And so like like with my Marvel Legends, I'm like, I don't have the space for this. I'd rather devote it to Transformers. And so I have just recently been purging all of my Marvel Legends. So I think I sold like half of them so far, and then I'm in the process of selling the other half. So yeah, so that would be my, you know, my answer with all that. I mean, I think I probably have a fair amount of regret just because I'm pretty impulsive, but with buying stuff.
Yeah, for me, there's I mean, I have one regret of I left the fandom for 5 years. That was my regret. I don't necessarily like, there are a couple of times where I have minor regrets. I bought a couple of the old Universe toys and kind of went, okay, like I can't quite figure out how to transform this one because I bought it loose from somebody else and I didn't get the instructions with it. And I went, okay, like this, a neat toy because it's Perceptor, but I don't have any idea how it fits together. Okay, so that one was kind of like, there are a couple of them, especially when I was into the Universe, that line, and I was just buying mostly Autobots. A lot of my shelf is Autobots nowadays. Right now, I have that regret. I don't really have any like immediate buyer's remorse because I'm just so excited to get a new toy in my hands. And I'm pretty frugal when it comes to spending money in the first place right now. So a lot of it just comes down to, if there isn't anything on the shelf that I want, or if there isn't anything out there that I'm currently looking for, my money stays in my pocket, or I will start hunting for the next large Skywarp toy I need, or whatever, you know. So for me, there really isn't any major regrets. Though, I mean, on occasion, it's just, I don't really look at a lot of toy reviews personally. I don't watch a lot of them. Sometimes I'll go on to watch the reviews to be like, okay, how do you transform this guy? But a lot of the times I won't look at those. So once I get a toy in my hands, like that is when I notice that there are issues. You know, if I happen to hear it from friends on Twitter, then it's okay. I know that there are issues going into this toy starting off, but I like the character enough that I'm going to pick it up anyway. So there really isn't a heck of a lot of buyer's regret or remorse for those types of purchases. I mean, I don't collect any other toys at the moment, so, and I haven't really, aside indie video games, Bendy and the Ink Machine is currently one of my larger ones, or Cuphead. So there are those ones. I have more regrets buying Disney merchandise than I do Transformers. So, you know, it's more practical stuff that I go, wow, why did I buy this, rather than like toys? Because toys are a luxury. If I'm going to pick it up, I want it for a reason. And then maybe several years later, I'll have the regret of, why did I purchase this? Now I have like 20 Autobots that I don't know what to do with.
Well,
Um,
and I don't know about you guys too, that, for me, that instead of going and buying, the newest, fanciest car, or, fancy clothes, or just something like that, like, I would rather, buy a slightly used Toyota or Honda and drive that around, and, whatever, have, not the newest of that kind of stuff, and then spend my money on toys. Honestly, I'm not getting threadbare stuff, but, I think, for me, that I feel like, again, like you had mentioned, Amber, it's like I tend to be somewhat frugal in, other aspects of life. And then, that allows me to have some discretionary income, that, after all my bills are paid, after my kids, have food on the table and all their stuff paid for and their stuff saved, and, whatever, I've got savings, in the bank, then I'm putting it, into my collecting as well.
And I think I very much echo that, Lucas, because while I am like, some people might see how much I'm like collecting and how much I'm buying at this point and be like, wow, you're really like you're over the edge here, Anna. But when I was in undergrad and when I was in grad school, I did not buy Transformers. Like I remember in undergrad, I would go to Big Lots and buy like some of the bootleg ones sometimes, like spend like $10, $20 buying some fun knockoffs to play with and breaking them like a week later because I play with my toys too much. But like I was logical about it. I wasn't going out there, and even though there were quite a few, like that's when Cybertron came out, was when I was in undergrad, and there were quite a few Cybertron toys that I really liked quite a bit, but I didn't buy them because I didn't really have the resources then. I was focusing on school, not working. And, even nowadays, it's like I did not hold back when purchasing a home. I bought a nice house that I really like. I am persistent in always having a nice car that is under warranty because that's something that really matters to me, is to have a reliable means of transportation and no mechanical expertise. So, I take care of that crap first before I go ahead and get these figures. So I have to say, like, even though I can talk about like the buyer's remorse for being a teenager buying beast machines, as far as like actual collecting now, I only do it because I don't really have any other expensive hobbies. I'm not a drinker. I'm not a partier. So this is where I spend, extra funsies money. But if it came down to it, and I walked in, I left this podcast and I found that my husband's arms had fallen off and that we needed to get him expensive surgery to reattach them, I would happily sell my entire collection for our health. Or, if both our cars exploded, which would probably blow up our house because they're in our garage, so that's not a great idea. But if all of that happened and we needed lots of money, my collection would be on the table, right? Like, I'm fine with that because it's not more important than anything else.
Well, and then you also look at it like, the rare ones are hard to find, but at the end of the day, like once you get back into a stable environment, especially after like something major like that, you can theoretically buy all those toys again. They may be a little more expensive or a little cheaper than when you first purchased them, but you could always rebuild your collection from the ground up, like Lucas was saying about his friend before. So that's definitely something that matters. Definitely, like your safety and security and whatnot matters, and then everything else on top of that is fun money. And if it so happens that, oh my God, I have to sell my collection to keep this roof over my head, absolutely, I would have no problem in that. I don't know how to even start about doing that, and I should probably do that once I get all my toys out of storage and play the keep toss game. But that's definitely something that matters in the long run for that kind of thing. And then once you sell it, it's like, well, at least I have everything still secure and everything's still okay.
Yeah. I will say that it's difficult when you do have to sell your collection, it's very difficult to get what you put into it back. So I just hope people don't collect for investment's sake. It's just a very tricky thing to do if that's like your goal. It can happen. Luckily, suddenly all these Prime toys you were holding on to are worth twice as much. That's great. But you can't predict that stuff. It's as unpredictable as, disasters happening in your life that make you have to sell your collection. Lucas, do you know, like you mentioned, Brycey is selling his collection, which I was very shocked about. Are you at liberty to say why? Do you know?
He's moving.
So he just, it's a total, like, I don't want to move all this stuff. It's time to move on.
Yeah. But I think he's, to me, talking to him, and I know that this is kind of a sentiment that there's been going around, is there's a lot of those guys that have been collecting for a number of years that are kind of like they reached their end goals, like they got everything, and that they wanted to get, like, because some of those might be a G1 collector or whatever. And so at that point, they're like, well, there's nothing else left for me to do. And I know for him specifically, I know that he had mentioned, I think, like, 2 years ago, where he's like, I'm down to like 3 figures that I need to get. And so I think that there's a lot of guys where they're like, I've reached my goal. I want to do other things with my life. I'm burnt out at the moment on Transformers. And I mean, who's to say whether or not, he or other people who have gotten out of it, or gotten burnt out recently, maybe that they may take a break, and 5 years from now that they'll be back into the fandom and recollect everything. But I have heard that sentiment among quite a number of, I think a couple of the Facebook groups where people are like, I kind of feel like I'm done. I've kind of reached my end game here.
That's I mean, that bums me out, but I think it's a personal decision for everybody, and when you got to make that decision, then just make sure it's the right time. There's another guy, Cobra Zartan in Canada. He's also, getting out, and he has like just so much awesome stuff. And this is when these people sell their collections, these are great opportunities to like fill the gaps if you are trying to get some of these really, really rare pieces like Black Shadow and Blue Bacchus. Those kind of things don't pop up very often.
I think it's interesting to hear, and I hear about this all the time with people who have been collecting for many, many years, is they finish their collection, they stop collecting, and then they get rid of it. It's like, I met that goal, I collected everything, don't need it anymore. And I think that's interesting because it says something about your goals for collecting. Like, why were you collecting in the first place if once you meet your goal, you get rid of it? I think that could be a whole other discussion, right? Like, why would you do that sort of thing? But I think it's like a different mindset. And I think 3 out of the 4 of us just said that, like, we hope we collect forever, not because like, I don't even know why I would come up with otherwise, because it's clearly because we enjoy it. Right? Like, I don't want to complete my collection and sell it all. I don't want to get rid of this because I can literally go into my office/toy room and mess with plastic toys and feel happy afterwards. And that may be a unique weirdness of me. One of my friends recently called me childlike, which I definitely don't like that term. But, that's nice to be able to do that. And that's really the reason why these toys I can go mess with them, repose them, move them around, and actually have fun with it. Am I a robot again? You're getting played.
Yes. But yeah, no, I mean,
I pretty much know.
I feel like I would absolutely do that, though. I mean, I think if I was done, I would just sell it all. Like, I don't think I would actually keep it. I mean, I'm sure that there's pieces I would pick out to always keep, but a lot of it, most of it, it would just be gone, and I would do other things with it.
I can't imagine it. I've owned this thing for like 4 days, and I can't imagine ever wanting to sell it because it's so fun to play with. Like, I really enjoy messing with it. So I just can't imagine getting rid of all of it. Yeah, I need a better internet connection. I apologize to people. My internet is in the basement, and I am upstairs, and I need to either get an extender or one of those mesh blades or something in order to have a better connection. But I haven't done it yet.
Well, I think it's some sort of interference that comes through, like a cell phone reception or something.
It's possible.
Yeah, you just need to hardwire. Just do like I did and run an Ethernet cable all the way through your house. So
drill through my poor innocent floor. I don't want to do that.
you don't have to. Just run it along the baseboard, and you can't really tell.
That's classy.
But oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go. I actually forgot what I was going to say. So
Okay, Lucas actually brought up a really good point. Like, I'll bring this question to light. If you had to sell your toys, or if you were completely done with the fandom or whatever, like, and you could only choose, like, say, maybe 2 or 3 or whatever, like, what toys would you hold on to for the rest of your life to remind yourself of your time in this fandom, if you had to sell your toys?
Funny thing, the Microcasters group, me, Lucas, and Christian, have literally sat down and made this list.
my list
Yeah.
always
Literally
changes,
one day.
though. That's my problem.
Yeah, well, your list changes, mine doesn't, because I'm cool. But yeah, so we have literally done this. We went for 30 though, which is a really big number, and 3 is much harder.
Wow.
If you had to narrow it down to your top 3 toys, what was it? I mean, and I know that everybody changes, and especially like when third parties come out and whatnot, it's like if you had to narrow it down, like, that's the terrifying concept.
It'd probably be the stuff I spent the most, that cost the most valuable ones, which I just bought something really ridiculous that I am excited to get, and it's not here yet, but it'd probably like mint and sealed box, like G1 stuff. It's probably what I would keep, and obviously Starscreams.
I would say for me, it would be the stuff that I got at conventions. So like convention exclusives and all that, because I feel like that kind of like marks a point in time that I'm like, all right, this is TFCon 2016, this is TFCon 2019, like whatever it might be. That I think that's like, if I had to sell all the other stuff, because that's what I've kept from, I went through this huge masterpiece third party purge. I kept all that. But yeah, I don't know. My list always changes, so I'd be hard to nail down the top 3.
So you value like the memories.
Yeah.
I think I'm about the same, but I also would want to make sure I kept at least one fun toy to play with. So like one thing I know I would keep is my G1 Headstrong, because I've owned that since I was 3 years old, and it was my first Transformers toy. And it is definitely, like, it is covered in tooth marks, but I will never get rid of that toy because I chewed on it because I was 3. It's like teething. But yeah, I will always keep that thing because I really like it, and it has a lot of meaning to me, even though it's like not really the best looking toy in the world or anything, but what else? Who cares? But then I think I would probably also keep my my Combiner Wars Devastator, because it was like the first like Transformers gift my husband got me that was like really well thoughtful and planned, and I also love it as a toy. And then I'm not sure which, but I would probably keep one of my more highly articulated third-party figures, like either my favorite MMC or my favorite Fans Project figure, just because I really like to play with like posable action figures. So it would probably be my 3.
No Target Masters on that list?
It might happen, it might not. It really depends, right? Because like this guy comes with the Target Master. So if I kept him, it's like an Axe Master, I think. I don't even know what he turns into. He's got this horrible growth off of his back, but
Oh no.
Well, it's just it's a weird figure. It's just like that doesn't go anywhere, but I still like it.
That comes with the Dinobot?
Yeah, the Fans Project ones. They all came with like Weapon Master guys. I can't really call them Target Masters because I think most of them were melee.
Well, they'd be Battle Masters then, right?
Yeah, they're Hitty Masters. But yeah, they're actually like on their own. They're actually good toys too. I really love Target Masters. But yeah, I mean, if you're putting me down to 3 here, right? Like my fandom is bigger than 3. So it's hard, but I'd have to make some tough decisions. I think I would go emotions like Lucas mostly, but then also I want one toy to play with.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably cry the fattest tears if I ever had to sell my BotCon 2011 Stunticon set. But, if I had to choose a set, it would be that set to keep if I had to choose something that wasn't a set, I do have the. I forget
I
who
mean,
makes
I think you're
them.
cheating. That's 5 toys. So
It's a set though, so it counts.
Hey, one of mine was 6 toys.
I was gonna
You
say,
didn't call me on
Anna
it.
Davis Devastator.
they combine into one.
They
Debatable.
do 2 in other forms. They don't do it animated, but hey.
Okay. Okay.
It's fair. It's fair.
Cheater.
I have the Mastermind Creations, the Cyber Engine, the Super Engine, the Hearts of Steel Skywarp. I have that toy, so I'd probably keep that one just because it's heckin' gorgeous. And then I'm a sucker for the Prime Vehicons. I'd absolutely love them. They are probably one of my favorite toys on the planet. So I'd probably keep one of those, and then.
That's 3.
No. I mean, yeah, 3. Yeah, if we go with a set and a nice 2.
You said 3.
That's 8.
Okay, this is exactly how Anna, Christian, and I got to top 30, because we're like, well, we have to include this and this and this and this, and then we're like, all right, how about top 30 that you can't live without? So
These are our 30 desert island figures. These were for stranded
No.
on an island with only our toys. What 30 do we take?
So I do want to mention that I love how, on TFYLP we had cut out Ouch My Wallet and made it its own show, because we're like, we're going too long. We really need to cut this thing short and, have it to be a nice hour. And somehow we've managed the last 2 weeks, and this is probably on me, or actually it's absolutely on me, that we've now went like an hour and 40 minutes or something. I think we went an hour and a half last week. So we probably do need to go ahead and wrap things up. I think it's been an absolutely fantastic discussion. I've loved everything that we've talked about. I think we've done a pretty good job exploring it. But do you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap?
I think that I've shared all my final thoughts already. I think the final thought I wanted to share was those regrets, because I wanted to make sure we got those out there, that we at least discussed the idea of regrets. So I think that I have shared and honestly learned a little bit about my own collecting. This is the first time I've ever actually sat down and admitted that I literally do not want an end goal. I don't think I've said that out loud before, but I don't want one. There's no desire to end. That's it.
I think it's just good for people to think about some of these topics when if they want to consider themselves a Transformer collector, well, then just make sure that you're not being self-destructive, because it can definitely happen. Ending up with a bunch of toys behind you cannot be a good thing if you don't have the means to do it, or your partner doesn't like it, and it can cause a rift in your relationship. So if you have a partner, just be mindful of those things, and you'll be happy.
Yeah, and I guess my closing thought on this would definitely be enjoy your collection, and please don't take it seriously. These are toys meant to be played with. In my case, these are toys meant to be played with. Don't take it seriously. We're all in here to have fun, and collect what you want. And if you don't have an end goal, then don't set an end goal. Just make sure that you have the means to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, this is for us. Our collection is for us, and I think it's important to make sure that that you are also fitting that in to the rest of your life, because as much as Transformers is a huge part of my life, and I think probably our lives, but at the same time it's not everything. And so you need to make sure that it fits in with all your other life goals and all that, and those are going to change. So what your goals are when you first started collecting 15 years ago or whatever is going to be different than it is today, and that's okay. It's always the fandom's going to be there. Everyone's going to be there if you need to take a break, or if you need to whatever you need to do, or if you want to get more into it, that's great too. Just make sure that, it's not taking over the, everything in your life. So.
Yep.
Don't let the hobby become destructive.
Yeah. So.
Agreed.
Well, with that, we have went a while, so make sure and check us out. Microcasters Tuesday night at 10 o'clock. So we are now broadcasting that to YouTube as well after the live. So the live show is going to continue to be on Facebook, but then we're going to put it up on YouTube after the show is done on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. So this week we're going to do some third-party Legends figures.
Finally.
At Anna's request, she
Waiting
keeps
so
bugging
long.
us. So, and then Ouch My Wallet again. Check out that is on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock, I believe. So that is going to be weekly now. And then also, we actually have a show that just debuted last Friday, which is Rick's new show, which is called Cut the Tape, where he does a quick unboxing of some of the stuff. So if you weren't aware, like on Facebook, he's posted, some of his, setting up his collecting room and all that. Well, with that, kind of he's pulling a lot of stuff out of boxes and all that. And so he's finally getting to enjoy some of the figures. So he has some stuff that literally is 20 years old that he has not opened yet. So I think this last week it was a Transformers animated repaint of Ultra Magnus, I believe.
Yeah, that Roadbuster looking one. Like me.
So, but yeah, so it's it's a lot of fun. It's a little bit shorter of a show as well. So, but yeah, I think that's all we have for coming up next week. So,
Yep.
but yeah, and then and then check us out, again next week on TFYLP noon on Sundays. So, all right, with that, have a good afternoon, everybody. Have a good week.
Peace out.
All right, thanks, peeps.
Bye.